What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm also going to break down why Tesla's in a very important position right now, as there's a very, very strong bullish and bearish case that could be made for the share price. What the news is saying involving Jerome Powell and President Trump, what's going on with the whole situation involving the US and China, what you should be watching for as time goes on, looking at all these different charts. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 or more to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus $100, or deposits $50,000 or more to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on invested cash, and the offer ends very soon. So please use my link down below to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, as far as Tesla and the market are going, the market is very, very volatile because we got this very, very big sell off on Tesla after President Trump threatened 100% tariffs on China after they had new export controls, new restrictions when it comes to mining these natural rare earth materials that are very important for production and such. We got this big sell off. Then President Trump told us, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So the market kind of gapped up and we got this nice little defensive move. And there was lots of good news coming out for Tesla yesterday. Then we gapped down and dumped again today after more negative news came out involving China. Then the market bounced again thanks to Jerome Powell. Then we came down at the end of the day again, closing once again at a decent place. So we're just going back and forth, but there is some good and bad news. I think Tesla's very mixed right now. You have a bullish and a bearish case depending on all this news, but this is very difficult to predict because it depends on the news involving the US and China. It depends on news involving Tesla and what other catalysts come out. But the main catalyst is the US and China news, and I can't really promise anything about this since there's so many different things coming out. So the bullish case is this: there's an inverse head and shoulders, right? And this also resembles a flag. If Tesla could break 440, we're looking for a big pump higher, right? This also looks like a flag, and that could also help us break out. But the bearish case is that, wait a second, what if we don't get the breakout because Tesla keeps rejecting off this trend line and we're making lower highs? You could argue that Tesla has a gap to fill at 397 and another gap, and that this looks like actually a head and shoulders, and we just keep on rejecting, and that Tesla is going to return back down to fill this gap over here. And then if that fails us, then there's also a second gap over here. There's a second gap right here to be filled all the way down into like the 390s, right? That's like the more bearish case looking at the head and shoulders. So there's a bullish and a bearish case. I'm going to go over what to watch for in the key levels to determine which one's going to likely pan out and what news is coming out that's very important. And then I'll go over like all the charts and such. But one more thing, just know SPY and the QQQ are also range bound. They're also very indecisive. Although they're trying to make higher lows and go a little higher, keep in mind, we're also going back and forth between our key EMAs. Same thing with the QQQ. That's also causing Tesla to trade sideways. So that's another big factor. But anyways, I'll go over the charts in more detail in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about the news. So there's been some news coming out about what's happening involving Elon Musk and his pay package. Once again, Tesla now has to argue in favor of it, or whatever they want to do at in the court of Delaware. Again, this is the highest court of Delaware. They have to go across another judge, and it's going to be another long legal process. Elon Musk's pay compensation plan is very contentious in the eyes of some court officials and judges, unfortunately. But the majority of shareholders and Tesla constituents, they do agree with Musk's pay package. They are proposing it. They like it. We want it to pass so that Elon Musk gets his incentive. But we'll see what happens as time goes on, as litigation is still going on. Keep in mind that Elon Musk did say that, once again, it's not just about the money, right? He made that very, very clear. It's not a money thing. This is Elon Musk's quote. It's a reasonable control thing over the future of the company, right? Elon Musk does not want things to be kind of like tossed around due to political reasons. He wants to once again have a secure position after he has helped the company for so many years without a secure amount of pay. Now, he owns a lot of shares in the company. He does own, a large percentage of it, but he has not had a fixed salary at Tesla for a long time. And shareholders did promise him something, and they are trying to give him his money, right? They're trying to give him a nice paid compensation plan, but there are a lot of like legal aspects that are now getting in the way. And with the litigation going on, this does make things a little bit more complicated. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens as time goes on. More news came out. We had some negative news come out from another analyst known as Louis Gerard. This is not the best of news because he's saying that Tesla's very overvalued. And in summary of what he said, he's saying that Tesla's valuation is just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. Those were his exact words. And he gave Tesla a sell rating because he thinks that Tesla is nowhere near its fair value. The fair value is actually like under $300. And the reason it's so overvalued into the 400s is because investors are betting on Tesla solving autonomous driving, Tesla eventually having a robotaxi, and all those AI developments are what's really helping the share price go up. But is it fundamentally backed? Right now, it likely isn't, right? It's likely not fundamentally backed right now, but in the future, when you start pricing in things in the future, you could make the argument that fundamentals will eventually catch up. And because the market is so forward looking, it does make some sense. So there's two arguments to be made. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. This takes the argument that Tesla's not fully developed what it says it has, and at the same time, there's arguments to be made that Tesla's overvalued. We've heard that before, and this is what this basically talks about. This is making world news right now, but it is what it is. We have other sources that are giving Tesla buy ratings, and then the price price ratio is still holding up well, which shows Tesla has some strength. And besides that, there's nothing else that's too crazy on our data. So what happened today? Why is the market moving the way it is? Let's kind of like go over this. As you know, we had Jerome Powell, the big guy. Jerome Powell was giving a speech today, and he said some very, very important things. He mentioned that once again, when it comes to the way the labor market's looking, there is a risk of weakness that could be coming, and there's no risk-free path to doing so. That's what Jerome Powell said. Then he mentioned and went over the Fed's balance sheet and the efforts that were taken to once again address the whole pandemic situation and how it's still having lingering effects to this day. Now, despite that, because of the fact that there's labor market weakness, Jerome Powell did imply that more cuts are necessary and very probable, although they have to wait and see what happens with the next jobs report. So, if anything, because Jerome Powell is implying more cuts are likely coming, he's being a bit more on the dovish side, and the stock market likes this, which is why we saw a very, very big bounce today after getting a big sell-off. We also had Susan Collins from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. She's the president, and she mentioned that she also sees the same thing happening. With inflationary risks somewhat being more contained, there's a greater downside risk to employment, and she believes that that is once again supporting the notion of us getting more cuts. So that's part of why the market bounced at the end of the day. But why did the market sell off? Well, starting off with the whole situation involving the US and China, the Trump administration is taking a different stance. Before there was lots of tension last week. We had China announcing their new export restrictions. The market did not like that. President Trump then threatened 100% tariffs on them as a result of that. But now they're basically saying they want to have reasonable negotiations. They're trying to cool the tensions. That's what we're hearing from many Trump officials. We also had Jamieson Greer come out. He is the U.S. Trade Representative. He mentioned that it's up to China whether the additional 100% tariffs on its exports to the U.S. will kick in on November 1st or sooner. He's saying it depends on what China ends up doing, and that's their way of negotiating so far. So negotiations continue. That's what we're seeing, at least thus far. But the reason why the market sold off is even after all this like positive talk that helped the market bounce yesterday, some big news came out from China because they're saying that new port fees are coming out and they are meant to protect its shipping industry from the US's measures. That's their way of kind of looking at things. And they said they want to retaliate against President Trump's tariffs. One way to do that is now increasing port fees to U.S. owned, operated, built, or flagged vessels. Not the best of news, at least so far. And then the U.S. is once again not happy about this. Now the U.S. and China are changing their overall policies, and they're going to be imposing additional port fees. It also is going to be affecting holiday toys, crude oil, all kinds of products, and the trade war continues. That's part of why the market dumped in the morning. But then we bounced with Jerome Powell's speech. So that's the crazy thing. President Trump then said, this is the latest update from him, that he believes that China is purposefully not buying our soybeans and they're causing difficulty for our soybean farmers. He's saying that they're doing this and it's an economically hostile act and that we are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade. That's some big news coming out from President Trump, at least so far. Keep that in mind. And then for more news, we have some earnings coming out tomorrow. We have ASML in the morning, Progressive, Dollar Tree, Bank of America, and Morgan Stanley. Some big bank earnings tomorrow morning. And besides that, there's nothing else as crazy for the rest of the week besides TSMC. But for now, that's what we're looking for. We might see some volatility thanks to the big bank earnings. For our data, tomorrow's Wednesday, October 15th. Very, very minor data in the morning, but then we have a bunch of Fed speakers as the day goes on. We also have the Fed Beige Book at 2 p.m., but that's kind of minor. And then, right now, neutrality is where the market was, but now it's back to fear in terms of our fear and greed index. Momentum is at fear right now. The put to call option ratio is at greed, and the VIX is also at extreme fear, at least for now. We're going to see if this dumps or not, so we'll see how it goes. So the tricky thing about the markets is that things are quite indecisive, at least to an extent, right? Tesla kind of pumped, dipped back down, now it's trying to like bounce again, but we have to see which way Tesla ends up breaking. So here are the levels. If Tesla manages to break and hold above 435 tomorrow, I think we easily push for 440 or above, but we need to at least close above 435 to continue for a pump. If we're bearish, however, we're going to likely turn back down. We need to lose 426 if that fails us. We're looking for a retest of the low of the day. And if that fails, once again, we have a gap to fill, taking us back down to 414 or below. I'm a little bit concerned, but I do think Tesla has some potential to try to bounce a little bit. But from what I'm predicting, there have been moments where we go above this trend line and then we just end up rejecting. And I think that's what Tesla is going to likely end up doing because we keep on making lower highs and lower lows. Now, could we form an inverse head and shoulders? If we hold above 440, I could change my mind if we close above it. But I would not be surprised if Tesla kind of pops tomorrow. We go a little bit higher with the big bank earnings, back up to like 435 to 440, but then we could reject and turn back down, and we could be looking for a move like this, which kind of like aligns with this trend because we have two gaps. There's a gap at 413, another gap down here at 397, and I would not be surprised if we kind of pump and dump on Tesla. Now, if we hold above 440, I will change my mind. I could turn more bullish, but as of right now, every time we're pumping, we keep on rejecting, so a pump and dump would not be surprising in my personal opinion. So keep that in mind, at least for Tesla. I find that to be the most likely possibility. Why else do I say that? Well, the market is trying to pump here. It looks a bit more bullish. This could also help Tesla push for 440 tomorrow morning, but I would be very, very careful since we haven't broken some key resistance yet. If we're bullish, you want to break 665 on SPY and hold it. If we hold it by close, we're looking for an attempt for all-time highs. If we reject off 665 like we just did 2 times in a row, we want to see us lose 652. If that fails us, we're looking for a dump back down to 646 or below. Right now, SPY is favoring 665, maybe a little bit higher, but then we're going to see if we get a rejection off that or not, or if we could hold above 665. I would not be surprised if we kind of wick above that, then we turn back down towards like the 660 area. So we'll see how it goes. On the QQQ, we had a low here, came up, made a higher low, so it's looking a bit more bullish. Could be looking for an attempt for 601 to 603 tomorrow. If we break 603, though, we could be looking for 606 plus. But if we reject and we end up losing 585, we're looking for a bigger dump back down towards the 570s. I am, once again, thinking we might be looking for like 603, and we'll see if we reject off that or not. Every time we kind of like hit these EMAs we reject, we're kind of going back and forth between supply and demand. So we'll see if we pop and reject, so keep that in mind as time goes on. On the IWM, if we end up losing 243, we're looking for a dump back down towards this 240 area. We also have a gap to fill down here at 237. But then we also have resistance at 250, so if we break that, we're going even higher. For now, we're favoring an attempt for 250, and we'll see if we reject or not back down to 244. I do think we go a little bit higher on the IWM, though, but be careful at 250 as there's tough resistance. On ES, break 67.23 and we're more bullish. Lose 6,600, we're going to be turning back down. I'm favoring 67.23 to be tested. We'll see if we turn back down from there and just trade sideways from here. But overall, we're just trading sideways. I think we just see some sideways price action unless we hold above this resistance. On NQ, we might also pop in the morning for essentially 24,900. If we break 24,960, we're looking for a bigger breakout. If we lose 24,600, we turn back down, but I think we kind of trade sideways like this. That's the most likely possibility in my opinion. Bitcoin has a nice double bottom. If we break past 113,900, we're looking for an attempt for 115,000. If we lose 110,000, we're turning back down, but as of right now, we have some upside potential for 115,000. And then we'll see if it rejects. Also involving Bitcoin, one more thing. See this white line? We keep rejecting off this white line here. Rejection, rejection, rejection. So we might revisit it, and then we'll see if we reject. Maybe we go a little bit higher, then we'll see if we kind of turn back down from there. So be careful. That makes me think that Tesla might kind of pop tomorrow. I think we might be going for the entire gap fill back up for like 435 to 440 tomorrow. But then we might not hold above that. We could still reject and turn back down, just like we've been doing every time we popped for the last couple of weeks. So be careful at least nonetheless. On Nvidia, we have a double bottom like structure, but here's the thing. If we lose 178, we're looking for a big dump back down to 174. If we break 185, we're looking for a big bounce. We might pop a little bit on Nvidia back up to 185, and then we'll see if we turn back down as time goes on. This has kind of like a double bottom here. Might pop a bit, but then there is a risk of us returning to 178 as time goes on. So be very careful with Nvidia. For Aapl, as we hit 250, it likes to reject, but as we hit 244, we like to bounce. Might touch 250, then turn back down and trade sideways for now. That's most likely what we're going to see on Aapl. On Netflix, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs over and over again. Now, if we could basically lose 1200, we're looking for a dump back down. If we bounce, we're looking for 1225 or above that's to push higher. I think we kind of pop and then drop like this, and we just trade sideways, at least for the time being. MSTR is also making lower highs here. If we break 315, we're bullish. If we lose 298, we're looking for a dip. I think we consolidate and kind of dip a little bit more. Celsius also has support at 61.5. If that fails this, we're looking for 60. If we break 63, we're looking for a big bounce. I think 61.5 will likely be tested. We'll see how it goes from there. Supermicro is also consolidating between 55 or 54.5 and 52. I think we're going to likely continue to consolidate, at least for now, as we're seeing a lot of sideways price action. So 54.5 is very possible. Palantir looks more bullish. We have a nice looking double bottom. As long as we don't end up losing 178, we're going to be favoring 182 plus. Rivian has a nice double bottom here. It looks a bit more bullish. Might be favoring 13.5. SoFi is favoring that we might be going for 28.73. And AMD is also favoring a lot of sideways price action. But I am in the middle with this because we also have a head and shoulders. So there's a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder forming. If we end up losing 210, we're looking for a dump to 201 or below. But if we break 230, we're going to be turning more bullish for a bounce. We're kind of trading sideways like this, so it might consolidate. Then we'll see if it dumps off this head and shoulders or not. So be very patient. ARM rejected. We're going to see if 166 holds or not. We could bounce off 166, then we'll see if we turn back down to 159. Palantir is bouncing right here back up to 69.8. If that breaks, we're looking for 70.67. For Coinbase, we're on a bit of a downtrend. If we lose 337, we're looking for a dump. If we break 358, we're looking for a bounce. Watch 337 to see if we bounce or not. For Amazon, we have resistance right here at 220 and 221.67. We also have support down here at 214, so we could bounce a bit near 218 and then reject. So we'll see how that goes. Meta is forming wicks here, so it might be retesting 715 and then it might reject again. We're just trading sideways on Meta. Look for 715 and then some consolidation. Google looks more bullish, making higher lows, so it's favoring 248 and eventually 250 is our targets. As long as we don't lose 244, we're looking a bit more bullish. On Microsoft, we have 516 as resistance and 510 as our support. I'm favoring 516, and we'll have to see what happens after that. Oracle's also making higher lows here. As long as we don't lose 294, we could be bouncing back up to 305. So we'll see what happens after that as well. The dollar, not the dollar, DJT is just consolidating for now. The VIX is also range bound between 22 and the 19 zone. So we're kind of trading sideways. Until we see one of these directions break, we're stuck. I want to see this either break 22 to be bearish for the markets, or we're going to lose 19, and this is going to be like another sign the market's trying to pump. We're range bound, so be unbiased and give this the time it needs to develop. The 10-year is dipping, the dollar is dipping, and so is crude, not really doing a whole lot or affecting things. So it looks like SPY and the QQQ want to go a little bit higher tomorrow morning, but then be careful. We'll see if we get a rejection near 665 to 667 on SPY or not. We do look like we want to pump a bit, at least for now, but we'll see if we reject. We'll see if the QQQ also rejects near 601 to 603. I think we go a little bit higher tomorrow in the morning. And then Tesla might be pushing for 430, then 435 and 440 is our targets for some temporary upside, but then we'll see if it rejects again, because once again, there is the bearish case, which is a head and shoulders, but there is a bullish case, which is like an inverse head and shoulders. It could go either way, but as of right now, the trend favors a pump and rejection, pump and rejection, pump and rejection, pump and rejection. Might pump for the resistance at 435 to 440, then turn back down. But the honest truth is that I can't be super fixated on one direction in this market, because it's very, very tricky, because you never know what's going to happen with all this tariff news. What's President Trump going to say next? What's happening with China? Be very careful with this market, manage risks, and be mindful of that. But with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your guys' days. And I'll be back tomorrow before market open to give you guys another update about Tesla and the stock market. Until then, Take care, guys. Get ready for tomorrow and be unbiased with the way in which you go about things. I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace out.